Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Virginia Fiume. I'm the co-president of Eumans. With some of us we already met, with others we didn't. Tonight is a very special meeting with the goal of discussing something that has been in different conversations for quite some time, which is the opportunity of launching, co-designing and launching a European citizen initiative on end-of-life decisions. This meeting is promoted by Eumans in collaboration with Associazione Luca Coscioni. It's the output of quite some efforts that has been done in the past months to try to bring to the European level what Associazione Coscioni did mainly in Italy, but also what a lot of you are doing in your individual member states. It's also, I want to mention, the output of an important initiative that Eumans organized back in December in Brussels, which was a prototype of a citizen assembly on end-of-life decisions. I see also with us some of the participants in the assembly itself. So we do have a combination again of experts and citizens that have an interest in how to reform the regulation in this field. I'm gonna mainly leave the floor to Marco Cappato, first of all, because he's one of the most entitled to speak about this topic, but also to try and contextualize this specific European Citizen Initiative in a framework that Eumans is trying to carry on to, in general, put more at the center of the next phase of the European Union, topics related to democracy, sustainability, and civil liberties and self-determination right. You should all have seen the text of the draft of a potential European Citizen Initiative. We thought it's always good to start from some concrete elements. I'm more an expert on the functioning of the European Citizen Initiative, the mechanisms and the challenges, but also opportunities that these instruments provide us. But first of all, the introduction to Marco Cappato, Treasurer of Associazione Luca Coscioni and co-president of Eumans. I remind everyone there is the interpretation available in italiano, ci sono gli interpreti, quindi potete ascoltare e parlare anche in italiano. Marco Cappato.
Thank you, Virginia. Is there a possibility of put the text also in the chat?
I'm gonna do it now.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank to all for being here. I think we are talking tonight about something which is not a short-term issue, but according to what we are convinced should be a long-term vision. And the long-term vision would be that the right to decide on our own way of dying should be recognized as a fundamental human right. And as you know, fundamental human rights are granted not only on a national basis, but also on supranational basis at a global and European level. Something has already been achieved through the Convention européenne des droits de l'homme, the European Convention on Human Rights, and we are convinced that something more could be obtained also at the European level. It is not something going to happen tomorrow or in 1 year. It would be a long way to go. So we are not suggesting you the illusion of a quick fix at the European level to overcome our own national struggle that each and every one of us is carrying on national level. We will keep on working at the national level, of course. But what we are suggesting tonight is that we should begin to raise the issue of how the European people could put on the agenda of European politics the right for an assisted dying as part of fundamental human rights of people. So the text, the draft that we are proposing is reflecting two aspects. One is the fundamental human rights issue that I have already discussed about. The second issue is about free circulation and free movement of people, in a way, the portability of rights in Europe. I will not further comment the text because you can read it by your own. We are not proposing to you to decide tonight to launch a European Citizen Initiative. We know it is a very cumbersome effort, 1 million signatures around at least 7 European countries. We know that are attending this meeting and the whole process also organizations which do not belong to the European Union. I think about Dignitas in Switzerland, for example, or our friends in the United Kingdom, or also in other non-EU countries. But we could even find the way of adhesion from non-EU countries to this effort. Please take out the volume to Carlo Troilot. Carlo, you have not to open the microphone, please, because if not, you are going to interrupt the meeting. So the way in which we could well, we have, of course, to discuss the text, and then maybe an intermediary step could be to create a committee of people and organization around this proposal. We will have a diviso in-person occasion of debate in Gdansk, in Poland, from March 17 to March 19. Of course, there will be also the possibility to follow the discussion online. And so this would be the first occasion to decide next steps. But what I'm proposing to you is to work on the text and then to work on a promoting committee of this initiative, and in the coming months to check if there is the possibility to launch the collection of signatures. Maybe Virginia, if you want to further integrate, and let's open the debate. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Marco. Again, thank you all. I will be very brief on a couple of technical aspects and broader political aspects. Technically speaking, just to summarize, the European Citizen Initiative is at the moment, only participatory democracy instrument of the European Union. It allows a 7 citizens-based committee to launch a proposal addressing the European Commission as well as the European Parliament, in the sense that also the Parliament can act upon a successful European citizen initiatives. Basically, if you collect 1 million signatures, you get an official hearing at the Commission and at the Parliament, and they have an obligation of replying to these demands. Of course, we know that the initiative legislative power is of the Commission side, although the Parliament has some instruments available. We can go into further details. The other important institutional element is that we have 12 months to collect the signatures once the initiative is registered by the European Commission. And signatures can be collected online and offline. Important to say is that the European Citizen Initiative is also an instrument of advocacy and transnational campaigning. And so I think it's quite be strongly coupled with other instruments of participation. With Eumans, we had experience on other topics, and it's quite interesting the wave that can be shaped through a European Citizen Initiative, even more than the technical binding results that is the output of that. Having said that, there is a little hook in the European framework, which is the outputs of the Conference on the Future of Europe. I don't know how many of you follow that process. It's been an interinstitutional process carried on by the EU institution between 2021 and 2022, which came out with a number of recommendations for the EU institutions for now being addressed on. And one of these recommendations specifically was on end-of-life decisions. It is a weak element, but it's a new additional element in the framework of the EU. And so a sign that the attention of the citizens of Europe is also on this topic. And of course, if we're here, we know this very well. Broadly speaking, just a few words on the Gdansk appointment in Poland that Marco mentioned. What Eumans is trying to do is to synchronize and connect multiple European citizen initiatives on topics, as I said, from democracy, sustainability and ecology, and civil liberties, with the goal of trying and create a like-minded network of citizens of Europe and activists in different fields in this broader framework of a certain vision of a self-determined life, and to use the waves of the European citizen initiatives or European committees to somehow start and impact as soon as possible the determination that the political parties will do around the European elections, which are going to be in spring 2024. So we think that from our, as some political science says, in terms of window of opportunity, the attention on the European public sphere can be a good opportunity for those of us that are involved in national level struggles to try to also inject our demands when it comes to end-of-life decisions in this moment when there is more attention on the policy-making processes of the EU. So that's just to give you a bit of context on how this initiative comes in context, and the fact that potentially it could be synchronized with other initiatives. We believe it's also a powerful element, because the reality is that a very small minority of EU citizens is aware of their right to sign European Citizen Initiative. Is not that common in a lot of countries, is more common in others, but the synchronization and so the efforts that as humans we are trying to do to promote more European citizen initiatives at the same time is going to be also hopefully generate a positive snowball effect where more citizens are going to be informed of more topics, more initiatives, and so this could help to achieve the 1 million signatures. Having said that, even when you are not achieving the 1 million signatures, having a registered European Citizens Initiative allows the committee to be invited also by the other EU institutions, for example, the Economic and Social Committee, a specific committee within the Parliament. So it's also a very interesting advocacy and lobbying opportunity that as a group we could use to boost our actions. And then, of course, alongside what, for example, in Italy, Associazione Coscioni does on the field of civil disobediences, regional and local initiatives. We have also Matteo Manari, who is the coordinator of the initiatives for end-of-life decisions in Italy. Maybe he can say a few words about that if he wants. But so the idea is to try to combine our efforts to have a stronger voice at the EU level whilst we carry on our national level actions, services and initiatives. So I'd say the floor is open for those of you who already have seen the text and want to comment on that, but also imagining how this could work. That's the purpose of the meeting tonight.
Thank you, Virginia. The floor is open for comments. You have a button reactions at the bottom of the screen, but you can also directly open your microphone and speak if you like.
Rob Van Holmen.
Yes, just a question.
One of the participants in the assembly in Brussels. Please, the floor is yours.
Sorry, yes, just a question. From the people we are gathered here, some of them are members of a large group or community of people. Did we make an investigation how far we get with our reach to reach people for signatories by adding up all those communities together? How far are we away from the 1 million signatures?
Well, this is a very good question. I think that we are still in a preliminary phase, the phase in which we have to understand and discuss if the proposal is convincing, if the text can be improved, and if the strategy could be the good one. But of course, very soon we should have additional meetings checking how much support every organization could gather. I think this is a little bit too early to make this evaluation, but of course the floor is open. So if anybody want to comment also on the capability of gathering support in your own national context, this is a very good question and point that has been raised by Rob. In Italy, for example, with the referendum on legal euthanasia, we collected 1,200,000 signatures. The referendum then was not admitted by the Constitutional Court, but it is also true that the referendum in Italy is legally binding. So there were huge expectations on how the outcome could have lead to a direct improvement of the law. So we could not take for granted that any similar could be replicated on a European initiative. So it's very difficult to understand how strong could be the support in Italy for a proposal like that. But the idea of having something European as a European people, I think this could be interesting for many. Is there any comment, even criticism? I mean, we do not pretend to have found the golden solution for all our problems. So I think it would be important to have a direct appreciation from you of the process that has been activated.
May I ask you a question?
Of course.
Hi, good evening. I'm sorry I was late. So I don't know if you shared a text before or if you sent, I'm not of the organization and I was curious to understand how it worked. So I didn't read the text. Did you share any document or file before?
It was, but it's also now in the chat, Daniela, if you want.
Okay, thank you.
I see a comment from Francien from the Dutch NVV. Do you want me to read it or take the floor if you want? I think it's important to take the floor if you can.
Yeah, I can take the floor, but I was searching for the words, so then it's easier to write it first. Yes, if I read the text right, you say you notice the conditions of unbearable suffering due to irreversible diseases or terminal illnesses, and for the Dutch situation. I think this text will mean regression, because for now in the Dutch law, the euthanasia law, it doesn't require terminal illness. So it only requires that you have that there's unbearable suffering with a medical cause. So I thought the text, the way it is right now, will not be a text that is for us the way forward. You know.
Yes. Well, this comment is very important because on one side we could reply that we are not pretending that the European Union decide a national law. The European Union does not have this power. We are suggesting a minimum threshold, but this would not impede, it would not be an obstacle for countries to go beyond the minimum guarantees at the European level. But it is also true that it would be difficult in the Netherlands to campaign on a text that is less progressive than the law actually already in force. So I think we should take into account your comment and maybe find a more general formula, because the European Citizens Initiative is not a law, is not an articulated legislative proposal. So I think we maybe should refrain from going into the details of at which condition it would be allowed the access to the medically assisted dying, and to be more general on this point could maybe be the solution in order to avoid the risk that in some countries, as in the Netherlands or Belgium or Luxembourg or Spain, the proposal could be perceived as a step back from what is already in place. So I think this is a very important comment, and we should take care of it and maybe redrafting the text, making it more general on this aspect. Thank you very much.
And before going to flow to Rob, maybe one also reflection for the Dutch. Sorry, Rob, 1 second. Is also for an NVV. A reflection is also how to imagine that your members can sign something that they already have, basically. So to reflect on how a voice from Netherlands would help other Europeans somehow. I think this is also the other element of consideration for Rob.
Yes, thank you. I had a question, actually. I read the 2 articles as being not the one being prerequisite for the second one. I saw them as independent. So even though in the Netherlands for the first article that is superfluous, but the living will is something that is new and would be quite helpful as far as I see. Am I correct in that interpretation that there are independent 2 articles?
Yes, Rob, exactly.
Dignitas, who I guess you, Silvan, I think is the name, if I remember correctly.
Corretto. Gentile Virginia, grazie. Just very briefly to Francian, there is in the, that's very legal, split hair thing, but there is a or in between terminal illness and incurable, retractable one, which means that both, not only terminal illness is included, but also incurable conditions. But to go beyond that, the question is, but this might be controversial and difficult, the question is, why not go for the full Monty, which is the European Court of Human Rights judgment of the year 2011, which says it's everybody's right to decide on the time and manner of their own end in life, provided they are able to make the decision and act accordingly. And it is not tied to a medical condition at all. The same is the German Constitutional Court judgment 2 years ago. And so that might be something which we not necessarily need to discuss now, but the question comes up what you aim for. The same discussion in the United Kingdom where they lobby for an Oregon model. And we keep on saying this is not good enough, but at the same time, it's clear that an Oregon model law for the United Kingdom is better than having nothing at all. So might have to think about tactical reasons for going for less, so getting at least something. It's another tactic to go for the full Monty. So this is one aspect to think about. And then it's just a very legal minor thing which I saw when looking at the text. It's written voluntary assisted dying, and then in brackets also called in some countries voluntary euthanasia. This is not correct. Voluntary euthanasia is a special legal term meaning a doctor putting down the patient on the patient's request, but voluntary assisted dying also includes assisted suicide or physician-supported suicide. So that must be clarified, but that's a minor thing in the redaction. So these are the things that pop up in my head. And as to Dignitas supporting in Switzerland not being the EU, what we can of course do is, if the whole thing starts, is to send it out to our members. We have of course more members in Europe than within Switzerland, but there are the other organizations. If I think of the NVV in the Netherlands, a large organization with a lot of members, there it's really possible to reach people. But these are just some thoughts that come up.
Silvan, for the note taking, can you please write in the chat the reference to the full Monty legal reference that is said, so we can take it into account in the notes? Full Monty is super nice. Thanks. Francesca Capuozzo.
Okay, thank you. Just 2 or 3 thoughts. First of all, I was in Brussels in December for the Transnational Assembly, and what immediately caught my attention was this underlining the difference between euthanasia, assisted suicide, and voluntary assisted dying. That's why I suggested this, the first integration, or actually modification, in order to substituting the word euthanasia with the voluntary assisted dying. And since we in Italy have this difference between euthanasia and assisted suicide, or even worse expression that is actually not legal now, that is istigazione al suicidio, I think that it is better to use only the expression voluntary assisted dying, and without any other specification, in order to be more general. And the second thing is that I know that the Eumans has proposed a package of European citizen initiatives, but not only because of the long and hard work already done so far. I think that this should be one of the European citizen initiative on which focus the attention in particular. I mean, the risk to propose many subjects is not to have the time and the attention and the expertise also to propose and release a good text. And I think that this one should be one of the most important, and probably already is. But I just wanted to express my opinion. With regard to the position of the member states, or actually the citizens from member states where these policies already applied and these laws are already existing, I think that their help should be even more important in terms of supporting, in terms of underlying the value of these rights to be recognized at a union level, and not only as they have the luck to have in their only their proper country. That's it.
Thank you, Francesca. Any other hands or comment? In the meantime, I don't know if there is any German in the call, German speaking, because, for example, one of the other problems of campaigning transnational across the European Union is that the choice of words, of course, we could translate the materials and find the best language. But for example, in Italy, for us, Marco maybe can explain it further, was important to clearly reference to legalizing euthanasia, to make a point very clear, no doubts, no differences, etc. But I understand in conversation in Italy, outside of Italy, that, for example, this term can be super highly controversial when it comes to Germany specifically, or German-speaking words. So I think the reflection on language, beside going in aligning with what has been agreed in the Federation, the Right to Die societies, the World Right to Die societies, but in general, I think a reflection on the term can also help us to be direct enough to send the message that we want, but also to avoid abuse of our own campaign because of cultural sensitivity and political sensitivity. So I just wanted to check, because I mean, as Italians, it has a meaning, a sort of approach to our struggle, but we should also think as Europeans. So just to echo Francesca was saying.
I think that the idea of Silvan of quoting previous judgment from the European Court of Human Rights is a very good one indeed. So this could also help us in not having to create our own language in a way, but quoting directly an authoritative, I mean, an institutional and very prestigious pronunciation. So, and this could be, and the question could be turned in how the European Commission would activate or the European legislation in order to abide to, or so this could be maybe the best way in which we could turn around also the problem of different meaning wording that you just mentioned, Virginia. So I think it's really a good solution. We have, also, of course, this quote, but Sylvan, if you can send it directly within the document, so it can become immediately clear to everybody. So thank you. And as was mentioned by Rob, there is a, and as I said at the beginning, the proposal would be threefold. So on one side, the issue of fundamental human rights. On the other side, the issue of the living will, and so in a way the free circulation of patients and the creation of EU database on that point. And the third point is the idea of having citizen assemblies by sortition, as it is happening right now in France, but at the European level, so in order to have a sort of involvement of the European people in finding an operational solution for the application of this right around Europe. I think this is also an important part of the proposal. And the idea of quoting the European Court in a way could also overcome the objection coming from the Netherlands of the risk of a step back, or the perception of a step back.
I have just seen a problem, Marco, with my little problem where I have to correct myself a little bit, and I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize that the initiative you're planning is going to voluntary assisted dying. It's going a step further than what the European Court of Human Rights said in 2011. We would have to do some arguing around it. That judgment said it's your right or freedom to decide on time and manner of your own life, but that means basically, very strictly legally speaking, only the right to put an end to your own life. To which extent it would include a right to get help from a third person is a slightly different issue. There, the German Constitutional Court was clear because it granted that right also, but that's not on the European level, it's only on the domestic level. So again, a problem. I would have to rediscuss with Ludwig Minelli to which extent exactly it would fit in, but it makes sense what you are proposing, which is really going to a step where you say it's good to have the right to die, but that's not good enough, because you also need professional help or professional support to put this in reality. And that's a different league. And I might have to think about that again. The right to end one's own life, that's there, like in that judgment, but maybe we have to think about the fine lines to go the step further, or whether one wants to go a step further of claiming the right to get help.
Yes, maybe we could put the second as the consequence of the first. So being the fact that this right has been stated, how the European Commission would intend to activate the legislation in order to make this right operational with the assistance. So this could be, of course, we have to work on that. It's not something that we can do like that easily, but I think we could find a solution even from the legal point of view. Maria Brouwer.
Microphone, Maria, the microphone. Microphone.
Maria, you should.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Now.
okay now.
Thank you. Yeah, Maria, it's my name. As far as I understand, the the Karlsruhe ruling in 2020 said that you not only have the right to end your life whenever you want and how you want it, but it has to be dignified, in a dignified way. And that implies that you are, it's implicit, that you have the right to a good death with a good euthanaticum, and not on your own, not when you are without your friends or family. It's not specific said in that way, but as far as I understand, that is how it is seen by legal interpretation. And the Dutch, the German government is now discussing how to make this into procedures to balance the right to die with assistance in a dignified way against how to protect the vulnerable. But there must be not a theoretical right, it must be practical. That's what the judge has said. Practical and dignified.
If I may just quickly, very shortly comment on that. Yes, the German Constitutional Court judgment, Maria, is going very, very far, which was a huge annoyance for politicians. And it's the core sentences are indeed, yes, you have the right to decide on time and manner of your own end in life. You also have the right to reach out to third persons and make use of their help if it's voluntarily offered. And what's more extreme and often overlooked, and the press hardly ever picked up on, is the core part where the court says the decision to end your own suffering and life is beyond any judgment from any third party, may it be doctors, the church, politicians, or whoever. Nobody has the right to infringe on that, meaning you don't even have to have a medical condition. That's what the court said. With the judgment, nothing changed in the German landscape of the law. It was only reinstalling the legal situation as it was 150 years long before the year 2015. That's also a point that was often overlooked, which had, as Germany, like Switzerland, has a legal framework around assisted dying, and assisted dying takes place now since the court judgment. And the German politics are claiming to have to do a law to regulate the matter and protect the vulnerable, but that's complete nonsense. It doesn't need a law. It's just the German paternalistic assholes sitting in Berlin. Excuse me, my language. That's the problem. That's just a side story. But the judgment itself is probably the most far-reaching judgment in this regard. But on a European level, as far as I know, we don't have a EU judgment or a European Court of Rights judgment yet, which goes as far as the German court. Please correct me, Marco, you are also a legal expert in all these judgments, or anyone else, if I'm wrong. But I think this is the situation. We don't have an update, so to say, to the 2011 European Court of Human Rights judgment.
Okay, I think you're right, and probably the solution, we can find the solution in quoting the European Court of Human Rights, and then ask the Commission to activate the legislation to make it become operational in a dignified manner. So we could use this point that was raised by Maria on of the dignified manner in a way as a task that we send to the Commission without having to decide in our proposal if we're talking about terminally ill and non-terminally ill, irreversible disease. I mean, this would be left to the job of the Commission to check how far the EU legislation can go. So keeping it general is, I think, the only way in which we could avoid to get into details that could raise problem in some countries more than some others.
Maria?
Well, I only want to say that I fully agree that it would be best to keep it very general on fundamental level without being too specific. But and then stay close to the ruling of the Constitutional Court in Karlsruhe. If you have the same wording, because that one is based on the Human Rights Charter and the interpretations of that by the European Court. So that would be have my preference.
Okay. Can I ask Virginia, someone to save the comments in the chat so that
I'm already doing it. Great mind thinks alike.
You
and Alessia Cicatelli, one of the lawyers of Associazione Coscione, is taking also additional notes. So
then we are in a botte di ferro, we say in Italian.
Exactly.
I cannot translate it. An iron what something. Okay.
In the meantime, that you think additional comments, maybe also imagining the perception of these in the public sphere in your national context, so media, people, etc., which I think it's also good to think. One very straightforward question is if any one of you has any contacts in Poland, given we are doing this event in Gdansk just in 2 weeks' time. But if any one of you has in mind either experts, legals, or organizations that are also active in Poland, that would be a good advice for us to connect with them once we are there. Ivan.
For a short time, there was a Polish Right to Die organization, but it has disappeared, unfortunately. But these people must be around somewhere. And I also remember some university discussion, judgment, whatever it was. It was on YouTube about 6-7 years ago, but it again disappeared. But being that you are in Gdansk, I guess you already have the connections.
I know that's the thing. We don't have it on euthanasia, like on this matter. So, or maybe we don't know we have it. So if maybe you can drop us some hints, we can then further. Yes, thank you.
I will try to research the old contacts. Yes,
So
I mean the political situation in Poland is of course the last 5, 6, 7 years has turned to the worse, unfortunately, with this conservative Catholic government and people there. So I think that was one of the reasons why this Right to Die organization again disappeared. But never mind. I will see what I can do, of course.
Michael, we have a comment in French from Claude. I don't know if you want to say a few words in French to summarize the key of the debate.
The comment is simply to ask if there are going to be a translation in French. Of course, once we would start a campaign, we will have to translate in all the official languages, but we can also try to provide some translation. And I think that now we have to redraft the text according to the suggestions that were raised, and then if the text would be consolidated, then we can maybe start providing some translations.
Okay. Anyone is deeply against the idea, which is like that if we go out with something like this, you would start and say, no, this is like, or the idea of the mobilization, or more or less there is a sort of an agreement that once we find a text that takes into account these elements, potentially we could organize the more campaigning, the mobilizing part. But is there anyone that thinks this is too crazy to be done? Encouraging.
Okay, so maybe the thing that we can do before the Gdansk meeting is to circulate an updated text. There would be, we will indicate to you the moment in which in Gdansk we will discuss the proposal, so that if you want to connect yourself by streaming and you can follow the discussion. As I said at the beginning, no decision has been made. The European Citizen Initiative is a huge task, so we are not proposing you to launch it without a very, very deep work of preparation. So that no improvisation is possible, and we have to go to proceed step by step, and considering all the doubts and criticism that could raise during the process. So, but I think that this occasion of this evening was very important to try to open the path and keep in touch, I would say. I don't know if there are other requests. I see an hand raised. Paola Stringa. Paola?
Buonasera, farò gli interventi in italiano e non ho seguito tuttissimo, mi scuso,
Paola,
riprenderò la registrazione.
Aspetta,
Avevo proposto di aggiungere nell'incipit la Convenzione di Oviedo.
1 second. For the English speakers, you have the interpretation option at the bottom of Zoom. So if you switch to English, you can listen in English, just to make sure that everyone understands. Scusa Paola, just
Vai.
Vai.
Okay. E pensavo che forse sarebbe opportuno nel testo richiamare anche gli articoli 1, 2 e 3 proprio della Convenzione, come si chiama, della Carta dei diritti fondamentali dell'Unione Europea, che tra l'altro sono i primi 3 che sono richiamati anche nella nostra legge nazionale sulle DAT, visto che sono 2 richiami che di solito nella nostra normativa interna vengono fatte, proporrei di inserirle anche qui in questa PCA. Grazie.
Thank you, Paola. I should add that there is the possibility for every European Citizen Initiative to have an explanatory of reason. I don't remember how is the formula, Virginia, but the text, sorry?
It's an annex.
There is an annex, so we can put as an annex all the legal references and also more general thought that we think could be useful. We can send them in the annex. So the Oviedo Convention is not very powerful per se, because it says that you should take in account the will of the person. I mean, I don't remember, I cannot quote it in English, but I know that the formula is something like that. So it has not, it does not carry a mandatory, an obligation to respect the will of the person, but it is something going in the right direction. I think those countries in particular in Eastern Europe, where nothing is foreseen, for them the Oviedo Convention can be useful. So I would propose to quote in the annex and I think it would be very useful. Thank you, Paola. So Virginia, if there is not anything else, okay, there are some contacts. Have you seen those contacts in Poland? Thank you to Silvan for this information. We will contact them, of course.
What is vecchia contatto?
Vecchia contatto, well, but Gallina vecchia fa buon brodo, maybe. Okay, well, now we go into okay. So
la botte di ferro.
Okay, sorry for all this popular Italian way of saying. I think that this is an indication that we should go to the closing of the meeting.
Now, the meeting is being recorded and is going to publish ideally tomorrow on the Eumans YouTube channel, so it's public and accessible, and you can also share it. So we will send the recording of the meeting, a revised draft of the text, so that we see if we can encapsulate the options. As we said, the Gdansk meeting is kind of important somehow to put these issues in a broader framework of alternative European Union somehow. So if you have any, beside the contact that we got, but any member of your organization that might want to have a trip to Gdansk, or any contact around the Eastern European or Baltics, I think maybe that could be an opportunity to also further enlarge our network, because of course this initiative works the more the broader it is. And thanks also on my side, and we'll be in touch. You have our contacts, and thanks Carla Pisi as well for helping us to organize this meeting. You can write us for any additional integration, and the document is going to stay there. So if you want to add comments and further details or suggestions, please use the document as a living document. Thanks everyone.
Grazie, thank you. Ciao ciao.
Grazie mille Marco, Virginia, super.
Ciao.
Ciao.